Okay. Welcome to the very first episode of my podcast. I'm your host, Mitara. This very first episode, we're going to focus on pattern recognition of emotions and cyclic experiences. And I'm going to show you in what I think and hopefully what you think as well is a concise 4-step way to go deeper into these emotions to the root and to heal them from within. I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I enjoyed making it. The Blue Lotus Podcast with Mitara. I don't know how to harmonize. Hopefully by the time this episode's edited, I'll have a name for it. Just to start off the episode, I'm someone who creates all the time. My life has become a series of creations and I'm always finding new ways to create. And I've always been attracted to the idea of a podcast because I love to talk. I love to create. And both those things kind of coincide here. But the thing with me is I won't do something unless I really resonate with it. And I guess that's my way of saying right now, I'm really resonating with this. I'm going to figure out what this means in the form of what I can create. Any sort of value that I could add to a podcast, because I don't want to be just yet another person talking really loudly over other people in an already loud room. I'd much rather go to a different room and talk by myself, which is essentially what this is. To really get into the episode, my form of healing and a facet of healing and a direction I've always taken is pattern recognition. Whether I've always realized that or not, that has been my form of meditation. That's been in the way my mind has always geared towards. And I'm sure other people have different mediums of meditation and different mediums of discovering themselves. But for me, it has always been pattern recognition. And I've been doing this for a few years now. So this podcast is really what I'm doing is in the hopes of if there's something that I've learned throughout the years, perhaps in the form of yapping, I can figure out if I could impart some sort of knowledge or some sort of information to anyone listening that they can implement into, well, your own life and see if the information resonates. And at the very least, you realize what you don't resonate with, and you can continue in your life to go find what does resonate with you. Because that's always been how I learnt to do spirituality, was really spreading myself so thin into every avenue that interested me. And if something didn't resonate, then I would just go in a different avenue. And this is why I have a lot of useless knowledge in my head, really. But it's been my form of learning, and it's what excites me, and it's what drives me. So, yeah. Also to say that this is the first time I'm really putting myself out there in the form of speaking about my life. I've always been tactful when I speak about my life, even when I do it on social media, because I don't think really 10% of what people see of my life, they actually know what's going on. The reason I say that is because I feel like I have a completely separate life to what even my friends see. And that's within my head and within my own journey in life and what I choose to do with the time that I spend by myself. So this is really the first time and the first medium that I'm using to actually give proper examples of my life and my own discoveries, in the hopes that someone else might learn something from it, but I'm really putting myself out there for the first time. And part of me low-key hopes that no one ever listens to this, but it's fine if someone does. Anyways, going into pattern recognition, I think what most people don't realize, including myself at one point, is everything is cyclic. Life is very cyclic. Your actions are very cyclic. The situations that you are subjected to and the experiences that you have are cyclic. And they all depend on what is subconsciously going on within you, and the energy that you're harnessing, and the frequencies that you're resonating with, so that you can mirror it in the outside world and attract basically a mirrored version of it. When you're going through something in life, or you're having an experience, you're having a feeling, whether it be pleasant or negative, but usually when it's pleasant, we don't tend to question it. So it's easier to question the negative ones, because it's very natural for us to have those questions of, why is this happening to me, or why am I experiencing this? We don't necessarily tend to question it when it's positive, so that's fine. Leave the positive away for now. When it's a negative experience, we tend to question, why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this experience? Do I deserve this? Those questions naturally we tend to gravitate towards, which is always a wonderful opening into healing. There's a wonderful quote that says, "Where the wound is, the light enters." And this is, in my opinion, really where it applies to. Because whatever feeling that you are experiencing, that is truly the doorway to a whole separate world that is subconsciously working in you. The way I really look at it is an actual world that exists within you that we aren't completely aware of. And the journey of this becomes to shine light on that world. I say this a lot, and I think this a lot, which is, your mind is extremely intelligent, far more intelligent than we give ourselves credit for. So whatever negative experience that you might be going through is usually a survival mechanism, a protection mechanism. It is some sort of equation that has been put into place because certain experiences, certain environments that we've been subjected to, or we've subjected ourselves into, and we keep choosing that energy. So as a survival mechanism, your body forms a pattern to really deal with that, and to not necessarily combat that always, but just to adapt to the situation. Later on in life, those things may not serve us. That mechanism may not serve us. And so instead, it gets manifested in the form of like anxiety and fear and paranoia and pain. And sometimes it's very little situations in our life that it's happened in. It's a very small situation that happened years ago, decades ago, but significant, but still something that sort of got brushed past and you never really paid attention to. The thing with going into your childhood and tracing your feelings into your childhood, and then from there on really to go even into different lifetimes, is pattern recognition. That is quite literally the only way I do it. Because the feeling of perhaps guilt that you feel in a certain situation that you are experiencing is a pattern. There's triggers that are common in it that they could be very obvious triggers. Let's say you take a substance, honestly. That is a trigger. And if you keep going into anxiety because of said substance, that on a surface level, the substance is what triggers it, but it's not necessarily the substance directly that's what's triggering it. There's a mechanism in place in your own mind that's pushing you into a survival mode. But completely putting that aside, because I know that's not everyone's experience, but we could take a very day-to-day experience. Even for me, one was the act of performing gave me a lot of anxiety. Not necessarily just performing on stage, but like proving myself in like a presentation, a speech, or a test even. I had to show results of what I was capable of. It was very anxiety inducing for me. It's not an enjoyable experience. All the way leading up to the experience, it's not enjoyable. Usually throughout the experience also, it's not as enjoyable. Afterwards, it's fine, but I don't enjoy it. And so therefore, I try to stray away from those things. I learn as much as I could, but I always try to stray away from showcasing what I've learned to people because of some sort of old experience that I've had. The first step is always to observe, honestly. It's to observe the triggers. It's to observe if there's any environments that trigger it, if there's any people, even, or substances, or situations and experiences that trigger it. You can always, if it's really extreme, let's say a person triggers a certain feeling in you, if it's really extreme, you can remove those things first. But if it's to a point where you can look into it and you're brave enough to look into it, observing that trigger starts what is really an awareness with that situation, an awareness with that specific feeling that you are feeling. And it's very specific. When you can pay attention to that feeling, it becomes very colorful, and it becomes in your own way, because everyone has their own mind in which they have navigated the world, and different skill sets that you've learnt, and different things that interest you. So your mind works in different ways to mine, which is why sometimes I go very abstract when I'm explaining things. But once you start paying attention to feelings, and you start paying attention to the wound and the experience of it, it becomes very colorful. It basically, and if anything, if it doesn't even become colorful, it is brought onto the surface. It rises up from sort of the depths of the ocean up into the surface, and it starts forming a shape of what it is. So even if you're not able to heal it, just being aware of the experience that you're going through is a huge task in itself. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of bravery. It takes a lot of, honestly, audacity even, which is a really nice way of seeing it, I think, because I think everyone should have the audacity to look at themselves, the bad parts and the painful parts, and the parts that you are ashamed of, or the parts of yourself that you think are less than what you should be. This awareness really is the gateway to everything. It's not necessarily just a mindfulness of, oh, it's there. That's how it starts. Oh, it's there. This feeling is there. This feeling exists within these situations. The feeling exists within these people, or whatever it may be. And I think this is where people stop. They observe the experience and they no longer want the experience, so they try to run away from the experience of it. When in reality, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Your mind is really just becoming aware that there was an iceberg in the first place. And instead of trying to push it back down and remove the triggers, which, like I said, if it's a really extreme or intense experience, it's good to reduce the triggers, because your body can't keep going into fight or flight mode or freeze because you keep experiencing these triggers. Because at the end of the day, it's a human experience. You have a human body, and your body's first priority is quite literally to protect you. And you can't go into these things, and you can't go into yourself and observe yourself if you're constantly going into fight or flight or freeze responses. And you need to first make your body feel safe and cultivate trust within yourself that you can handle these things. And that's sometimes by putting boundaries. But let's say that you have done that. Let's say that boundaries are in place. You're ready to go into this. Something that I struggled with when I started doing pattern recognition, and really this is called Vidarshana, by the way. This is not something I've invented. I do it through practices in Buddhism and teachings in Buddhism. But my form of it is what I like to call pattern recognition. Again, not something I've invented. Gosh, people have been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. With that disclaimer, what was I saying? Right, yeah. So when things start coming into awareness, when this experience that you're going through starts coming into awareness, a first response is kind of to run away from it. Something that I used to go through, and this was something that I had to discipline myself out of, was whenever I was going through a negative experience, let's say with a partner, because that's something that is actually very relevant here, and they are doing something that I don't like, or I'm going through something with them that I don't dislike, my first instinct is to feel as if they need to change, or they need to do something about it, or because I am feeling this feeling, there's something that they can change in order for this feeling to change. Sure, there's things that another person can change in order for your immediate experience to change. That's not what I'm saying here. This pattern, this karmic habit will never go away because you are just removing the trigger again rather than healing it from within. In that moment, it might feel good and it might feel great to get an apology out of someone or change something in your surrounding or your environment, or really stay stuck to the notion that my external world is quite essentially creating all the experiences that I'm having, when that's not necessarily the case at all. And you're subjecting yourself to a cage. You're quite literally putting yourself in a cage there because you are now at the mercy of your external environment. That is something that I had to learn for a long time. Something that I was very scared to learn for a long time. And it's not necessarily scared, but it's something that when I was going through something and the height of that emotion, I have to actively, out loud sometimes, tell myself there is nothing that I can change in the external that will fix and heal what is going within me. There is only something within me that is fundamentally wrong in the way I'm seeing something. Sometimes it's an expectation, most of the time it's an expectation, a form of it really, but that when you go to the deeper layers of it, you start seeing the expectation. This form of pattern recognition, what it really does and what it essentially creates is this pathway in your life that opens up your wounds in a way that, and you can start with one, you don't have to go into everything, but it opens up this perspective into your wounds of everything is cyclic and everything is karmic, and you have at one point chosen to take this road and keep adding energy into this path that you are taking. Truly, the way I see it is all of this truly started through innocence, or ignorance rather. That's a better word, of an unknowing of the future of what this can hold, of what this can mean for you. But now it's been so long and you've forgotten that, and it could have just been at one point you were just chasing something very shiny that felt really good and brought you a lot of joy, and now it's turned into something that is so distorted that you're just constantly being subjected to triggers and experiences that are just shallow, and you can't go past the surface of it. Okay, going deeper into this, right? To go deeper into this, there's different ways of observing this, really. There's different methods of doing this. Sometimes you can feel it in your body, feel the pain in your body, or feel the experience in your body. It comes as very physical things, by the way. So your heartbeat could be raised suddenly, your heart could hurt. A different part of your body could hurt sometimes, like your ankle could hurt. Just observe these things as you're being subjected to this experience. That's a whole different topic. I probably will go into that sometime. But for now, I'm just going to talk about the act of observing this. It could come out in different ways, and the thing is, we've never built trust within ourselves to realize that our bodies respond to the experiences we're having, quite literally, and sometimes in real time. So this is a form of observing it. Another form of observing it is quite literally visualization. I do this a lot because I'm a very visual person. When I visualize a feeling, recently I felt a really strong sense of shame. And it was very painful. It was very painful. I was thinking about it in bed, and the only way I saw it was quite literally someone strangling me at my throat is being strangled by someone against a wall. And that is the visualization of the shame that I felt, because that's how it felt for me. And sometimes the thing is, these visualizations manifest into reality as well, because it starts from a feeling. It starts from a frequency. It starts resonating into that visualization and that manifestation. That's why it can go in the direction of, when you're observing your body as well, it can actually manifest as a physical ailment. These feelings are just at the start resonances of energy that completely can manifest into its own thing. So when you're feeling this, and when it's still at the feeling stage, you can observe this in different ways. This is just 2 techniques to it. I'm trying to think of another. I know some people put color into this. This has never been my method of doing it, but that is another one as well. You can put color into your feelings. I'm sure you could see it in sound. Honestly, I really think there's way more creative ways to go about this. And the thing is, your mind will show you because you are naturally gifted in your own talents, and your mind is already mind is already conditioned in different forms of thinking, and you have different talents to me, obviously. So there's different forms of doing this, but observation nonetheless, painting a picture nonetheless. The thing here is, and I'm going to go deeper into this because I feel as if this is where people stop. They observe the feeling, they notice the feeling, they are aware of the feeling, and then from then on, they don't really know what to do with the feeling. I think the reason people stop here is because sometimes it is more than enough. Not more than enough, but rather it's fine. It's fine. Stopping here is fine. Actually, you've gotten really far from where you were before, but you can go much deeper. And I think this podcast is my way of showing you that you can go much deeper, because it's fine to leave it at the surface level and just to bring your emotions up to the surface and awareness of these emotions. But if you are interested, this is what this podcast is for, quite literally, to go a bit deeper than what meets the surface. So from here, you experience this. Oh, by the way, my dad's home, and I don't know if you can hear this in the background, but I'm just not going to stop recording. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to talk about my experience of what I do from here on, because I really don't know another person's mind, and I can't speak for anyone else, and I can't give advice on things that I have no clue on. When you do this for long enough, this awareness that you build, it doesn't have to be very long. Sometimes it does drag on for months because the frequency of that awareness is less. Sometimes it's really quick, it's really intense, and suddenly this awareness becomes all engulfing. Here's what happens with me. When I start bringing awareness to the feeling that I am feeling, my external starts mirroring that, because I am resonating in this feeling of pain or shame, let's say. I'm resonating on a very intense level, and I'm actively bringing it to the surface with my awareness, right? So, like I said at the start, what you feel inside and what you resonate with inside, you start attracting on the outside. That's why when people start out in spirituality, they're like, be positive, think positive thoughts, blah, blah, blah. That only gets you so far. You need to go into your shadow self. You need to go into the parts of yourself that you don't know how to shine a light on, and then bring them to the surface, because whether you like them or not, they'll start coming back either way in the right situations. Anyways, what happens with me is my external starts mirroring it. A question that I love to use here as sort of a mantra is, what is this teaching me during this period of my life, during this period of time? I love using the question, what is this teaching me? So as I'm being aware of this emotion that I'm feeling, I start asking myself, sometimes out loud, what is this teaching me? And I keep asking it, what is this teaching me? Essentially, what this does really is it opens up some sort of really vortex of energy and sort of a portal of energy to like flow in, this openness, this humbleness, this ready to learn. You're ready to learn now. You're ready to learn a new perspective to something that you have been subjected to your whole life. And the thing is, your intention is really what matters here. If you can go into this humbly, and if you can go into it truly, because the question of what is this teaching me is such a beautiful question in itself. It opens up your heart in a way that it has never been opened up before. So along with this awareness of this feeling and the mindfulness of what you are experiencing, and now paired that up with this open door of you're asking yourself, what is this teaching me? It could be, what is this experience teaching me? What is my environment teaching me? What is it really, anyway, but what is this teaching me? Sometimes it comes in the form of, sometimes for me, things get harder. So let's say I'm actually actively experiencing and observing the feeling of shame. And it's from a completely different source. Let's say work, something else is happening. I'm experiencing this feeling. Once I start asking myself the question, what is this teaching me? I start noticing this feeling coming up in different places that it was not relevant to before. My dad could say something, and but this feeling of shame can bubble up, or it's related in some way. And since I am now looking at this with an open heart of what is this teaching me, I begin noticing that I have also felt this in different places. There have been different triggers in my life, and not just the one that I'm experiencing as of this moment, that has also triggered this. And more often than not, when it comes to parents, that means you've gone through it when you were a kid, and that's a really, really wonderful place to start, or rather dive into, because the minute you get the signal of I've gone through this experience as a kid, that opens up a whole nother door. And more often than not, you have gone through this experience as a kid. Knowing that truth will actually help. It will accelerate the process of it. Now you have that information, right? Now that you have that information of what is this teaching me? And well, you haven't really been answered the question of what is this teaching me, but now you're being shown that you have had this experience multiple times before. Pattern recognition. This is quite literally the point of pattern recognition. Now, here, what I do is I start to go into these memories. This is something I do actively in a meditation most of the time. I ask myself, where else have I felt this? That's another question. I guess there's a theme here. I ask myself certain prompts and certain questions that direct my energy in a way that I can navigate through this experience. Where else have I felt this? That's the question. Where else have I felt this? And my memory's pretty bad, by the way, but when I ask this question and I do it through a meditation, I can essentially go into past memories. And it doesn't have to be that far away. It could be last year, it could be a few months ago. When you know how when you are looking at the sky in the night sky and you see one star and you stare at it for long enough, you start seeing the stars that are around it as well. A very similar thing happens here. A very similar experience starts opening up to you. So let's say you're looking at a memory a year ago where a friend invoked the same feeling here, or the same situation, and you felt the same thing. You can go, oh wait, this happened with another friend as well back when I was in school. And then you can go back to, oh wait, this happened with another friend that I was neighbors with when I was a kid. And you have this slurry of memories that now you can map out and turn it, like start like a crazy person, really start drawing darts and like lines with, and be like, wait, similar experiences, similar instances, and they've invoked in different intensities similar, not even similar, the same experience, but it could be in different intensities, depending on your value system and how you have relationships with the world. That, again, different episode, but for now, here. So now, let's say you have gone into your memories, you have gone into these experiences that you felt of, oh, I felt this here. Oh my God, I felt this when I was a kid as well. I felt this again with my friend here. I felt this with my sibling here. And within those things, there are patterns. Within the patterns, there are patterns, really. Within these things, you can, let's say, okay, it has to be someone who's really close that invokes this feeling. A random person could say the same thing and it doesn't get invoked that easily. Or one that I've had is, it's always been my best friend that invoked this feeling in me. And so those are patterns. You just need to find out what's the common denominator here. That's really it. That's what these memories are trying to show you. Again, ask yourself, if you can't, if you always hit a block, if you always hit a void, which happens throughout this whole journey, ask yourself, what is this teaching me? Go into it with an open heart. You can have your own version of this question or a different question, but as long as it comes through the intention of learning, through the intention of healing, and through the intention of having an open heart, you can't go wrong. Give yourself time, give yourself love, give yourself healing, and you can just dive back into it, and it will pop up later as well. So now that you can find the common denominator, wow, I'm really going in steps here. So, but anyways, now that you found your common denominator in these memories, now is kind of a fun part. Here's the next question, the third question, if you will. What is my value system? So I said I could go into a different conversation and a different podcast, like a different episode, really on value systems. But just to start off, I will actually touch ground here. How we have formed the world is through value systems. The people that are important to you are not the people that are important to me. I'm not going to go completely into this. We have different intensities with. I kind of wanted to go into this, but to explain it, but just for sake of getting through this episode, you have different value systems in your life. So, for example, I might value my friends, and you might value your partners more, or your parents more than a partner. I might value my job more, and you could value a family life more. Do you see what I mean? We're all encompassed of these values. That's not to say you don't value your job, just in different intensities. Everyone's made of these different value systems. The way I see it is like these ropes going out of me with different lengths. So something that I value really a lot, I hold very dear to my heart. Something I don't value that much can have a rope that's attached to it very far away. If something happens to it, I could still be hurt by it, but not as much as something that's close to my heart will hurt me, you know? So, with that imagery, what I'm trying to say is something that has a lot of value is something that can hurt you a lot. So, once you find the common denominator, you can, with the awareness of how much this thing is hurting you, you can start mapping out how much value this thing has in your life, how much hold this thing has in your life. I think I said at one point in the podcast, your mind is much more powerful than you think. And once it sees something for what it is, it lets go of that thing. When your mind sees something that, oh, something doesn't serve me anymore, it quite literally is like, all right, yeah, not going to put energy into that. Here's the tricky bit, is from here, because this is sort of the final step. Once you find your value system here, once you find why is this so valuable to you, and the answer quite literally can be because it's something I find value in. It's something I've found joy in. It's something that I have put my energy into and my love into and my efforts into. This is the tricky bit, and this is where I use Buddhism for this. The rest of it also I still do. I use it to guide me very much so, but this bit is quite literally rooted in Buddhism, is now that you have found this value system, now you have to observe your value system. You need to look at it objectively and analyze it and decide if it is fair. For example, I went through a Vidarshana that was about one of my best friends. I started noticing that I've gone through this similar experience with different best friends of mine in different parts of my life. When I was in A-levels, when I was in uni, when I was a kid, when I was, before I was in school even, I had a best friend down the lane. I went through the same experience with her as well. And it always, this experience is quite literally subjected to only my best friends. Or rather, I experience this only with my best friends. If someone is someone that I call a best friend, I experience this. Then I found the common denominator. Once I did, I asked myself, what is my value system? I'm someone who prioritizes friends. I used to do it so much so that I would put a relationship on the back burner, and I would value my friends more. Wonderful, right? What a wholesome thought, and what like a noble pursuit. But the issue is now it was causing me pain, and now I need to figure out if the pain is worth having this value system. Because here's the thing. I think sometimes we tend to not look at things because we're like, oh, but that's not a bad thing. Well, that's fine if you're okay with the pain that you're experiencing. But there is a way to have this thing in your life and still not experience the pain of it. That exists. And the illusion and the lie that we are sold is that you can't have something without completely letting go of it. All you have to do is let go with your heart. Not even let go of that thing. You have to let go of the expectation, the unlawful expectation that you are subjecting this value to. This whatever to. It's not really the value. The value system creates it. In the hopes that you're still with me and I'm not overcomplicating this, I'll proceed. Once you get to that point of the common denominator, your value system, you can realize that this is something that is hurting you through this value system. So again, for me, that was, okay, it's my best friend. I only experience this with my best friend. What am I going to do? Let go of my best friend? No, that's so stupid. I'm not going to do that. But instead, what you do here is you observe it. You ask yourself, what am I expecting from here? Oh, this is your fourth question. What are you expecting here? And more often than not, it's something completely unrealistic, and I will guarantee you of that. Given that you have gone through this whole experience with an open heart and a truth to learn and an intention to learn, this bit will also make sense. And I hope it does. Is this realistic? Am I hurting a person with this expectation? Am I hurting myself with this expectation? For me, in that topic of friends and best friends, what I was doing was I expected myself to be a perfect friend. And every time that I would fall short, I would go through extreme levels of anxiety and pain and guilt and shame. Every time I fell short as an amazing friend. And again, I looked back in my life and I realized I've been a good friend. As humanly possible as I can. I have sacrificed relationships for it. I've sacrificed experiences for it. As humanly possible, and with all flaws considering, I have been a good friend. A great friend even. And still, I expect perfection out of myself. And there's two layers to this observation of the value system. First, you can go into observing, are you expecting something from your external world? And is that realistic? Is that truly realistic? Does that go along with the natural order of the world? And then, the second level is deeper, which is, are you expecting something of yourself here? Once you start seeing this for what it is, your mind has no reason to keep that expectation going. Because it realizes, oh wait, this is wrong. I don't need to subject myself into this. And there's liberation in that. There's liberation in awareness of that. And there is such a freeing feeling. You're not going to let go of your best friend just because you expect yourself to be a good friend. In fact, you just allow yourself to be a good friend. And you allow yourself to show up in the best way that you can. And if you can't, you don't punish yourself for it. Just using this example, by the way, I'm sure you're going through a different experience, but TLDR of this whole podcast, at the root of every negative experience that you are feeling is some sort of unrealistic expectation that you have subjected yourself to as a choice, by the way, and you need to own up to that to go through this journey. And that's it. Once you start seeing it for what it is, you no longer expend your energy there. You no longer keep putting yourself in that realm of frequency and that pattern and that karmic cycle. And that karmic cycle is broken. And you don't keep drinking poisonous water after you've seen that it has been poisoned. You do it only because it's clear and you think it's water. But the minute you see that there is poison in this water and someone's adding poison to this water, you don't drink it. You're like, no, I'm gonna go find clean water. Anyways, that's the episode. I hope this helped. Don't know what I'm gonna call it, but even if just one person listens to this and this proves educational to someone and helpful for someone, I've done my job and it would have been worth it. Either way, I think it would have been worth it because this is fun. I like talking. All right. Love you guys. Bye.